Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to my webinar, Gamification for Designing Customer Experiences. I'm going to quickly introduce myself and then tell you a bit about what we're going to cover today. First things first, I am CEO of Gamification Plus Limited. We do consulting, training, speaking on the subject of gamification and have done that for over 7 years. We've been doing it pretty well and exported around the world, especially that we won a Board of Trade Award from the UK government last year for which I've ended up earning the title of Export Champion for the Department for International Trade, which is a little tough at the moment with everyone stuck at home, but hey, doesn't matter. I used to chair and am now honorary ambassador for GAMFED, the International Gamification Confederation. There, the mission is to spread best practices in how people use gamification. I also part-time lecture at the University of Brighton on the subjects of gamification and entrepreneurship at both postgraduate and undergraduate levels. And I've ended up running the main European conference on gamification, Gamification Europe, which last year was in Berlin, and this year will probably be online for the most part, towards the end of the year. And I also founded the Gamification Awards. So between the awards and the conference, I'm able to get sight of and tap into the latest thinking, the latest case studies, and share those with you. I'm also an ambassador for my local Chamber of Commerce because I like the mix of games and business, and occasionally I guest lecture other universities, so on gamification and human resources at King's College London, and gamification and creativity, innovation, digital transformation and marketing at ESCP Europe. I've got a picture of a game called Homescapes on the screen. I was thinking about telling you what my favorite game was, and although I wouldn't call it my favorite game, I do appear to have played over 1100 levels in the last few months, so I think it's probably my most time-consuming game. It's a bit like a Candy Crush copy. I'm going to show you a series of videos in this webinar. I'm going to talk over it, so I'm muting the sound from the video. One of the reasons I'm going to start with this one is because I think one of the great things we can do with gamification and marketing is to help create experiences between us and our brands and our customers. And I think this example from Nike, REACTLAND, is a really good example of that in action. They did a series of pop-up stores around the place where you went in and you tried on some Nike React shoes, trainers, then you took part in a game. So in this case, you're running along on a treadmill in the Nike React trainers. You can click a button to jump in the game, and as an outcome from this, you get to keep, I think it was a 10 or 15-second clip of you playing the game that you could take away with you and share on social media, as well as taking part and enjoying yourself. Now, what's top, in my opinion, about this is that it was, what's the word? 48% of the people who played the game ended up buying the shoes. So you've built this story between you and the people and your customers. And then not only have they bought the shoes, but they're probably telling other people they met along the way afterwards, for weeks afterwards, probably, about their nice experience with you. So in the rest of this session, I am going to talk you through a little bit about the science of how gamification works, where we apply it in marketing, gamifying marketing, looking at a few examples through a tool called the Player Journey, which is a good place to get started, I think, in building your gamified marketing. At any time, please feel free to put a question in the Q&A, and I'll answer those at the end when I have a chance to look at them. But I will get you to do some stuff in the Q&A section. I'm going to treat it as a bit of a chat as well. So, and if you make it all the way through this webinar and stay engaged, then you can be rewarded with a free 20-minute video call with me, which you can book from a link at the end of the webinar. Yeah, right. Now, a friend of mine, Bernardo, spotted this, shared this on Facebook yesterday, And I thought it was a great quote for our current times. To my parents who said staying home and playing video games would never prepare you for the real world. Checkmate. I think at the moment we've got a lot of people in lockdown playing video games, and well, turns out that's good, and we're helping save the world by doing that. Isn't that great? Now, my first interactive thing for everyone who's listening and watching, I would like to know what your favorite game is, and maybe what the last game you played. So what are you playing while you're stuck in lockdown? If you could add these into the Q&A section, that'd be great. Personally, I quite like strategy games like Civilization, or a mobile one called Battle for Polytopia. And if I could find people to play with, I'd probably play Risk with them. I like that. This is on top of playing like puzzle games like Homescapes, which was on the first screen, which I like for just killing a few minutes here and there. So let's see see what you like. Go on, type now into the Q&A section. This is part of your test, so that you can actually ask questions later. You can see it on the top. Q&A. I want to know what your favorite game is. All right, while those are coming in. Oh, just in the first couple. The Witcher 3, yeah, great. Oh, they're all coming in now. Excellent. I'm gonna see if there's any I haven't played later, and that'll be my homework, to play more games. I'm gonna start you with a quick definition. This is my favorite one, that gamification is the process of making activities more game-like. I think that's quite a doing type definition. The sort of thing that we actually do in gamification is we make things more fun. And the most commonly used definition is probably actually the use of game design elements in non-game contexts. But I like this one because it's a bit more doing. And it could be as simple as a little bit of feedback, such as this example on Twitter. All right. Just a little bit of fireworks when you click it. Nice bit of visual feedback to reward you. Yeah. Another way to think about gamification is it's like a practical framework for applying all the theories of psychology, for motivational psychology that are out there, that we can apply to day-to-day life, whether it's work or other situations. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's a very popular way of doing things. Oh, I'm going to show you that again. And so what do we generally use gamification for, if someone asks you? I think you can split it into two things. We're either using the psychology of games to motivate you, or to motivate a customer to do more of something. Like maybe we want them to buy more of our product, or maybe we want to get them to come back more and more often. Yeah, or maybe we want them to do less of a behavior. If I'm working on a project in sustainability, maybe I want them to use less water every day, particularly while we're stuck at home. Probably a good point. I bet all our water bills are going up right now. Something I always like to flag up, particularly in internally in companies, but also in terms of how we interact with our customers, is that when we put games into things, we're adding obstacles to people that they're volunteering to tackle them, but we're adding these obstacles that make generally whatever we want them to do a bit harder. Maybe there's another layer of game mechanics on top of the normal process that we want them to do. And that might seem slightly irrational, but if they're the right game mechanics, then people are more engaged and more likely to do what it is we want them to do. Another way of looking at this is user experience design is often seen as about removing the problems from the user, whereas we're about giving problems to the user. So I like to describe this as quite often on our website, we've got a bit of content we really want people to read and look at. And so what we might do is make it really obvious, put some arrows pointing at it, that sort of thing, so that people will read it. But what we'll do in gamification is we'll hide the bit of content. Maybe it's Easter eggs hidden around the website, or we'll make you earn it. Yeah, so on my own website, we've got a bit of content we really want you to engage with, but you have to succeed and play through 7 levels of a computer game first before you earn that bit of content. Now, overall, we might have less people seeing the bit of content we want them to see, But because they've earned it, they're more likely to do something useful with that content. They're more likely to do what it is we want them to do with it. In fact, I'll share the link with you towards the end of this webinar, I reckon. Now, if I was doing this webinar in person, I would get you to vote on this. What I want you to do is out loud, no matter who's around you, just say what you think the answer to this question is, which is to take one computer game company, Activision Blizzard, which apparently is, well, it is one of the biggest computer game companies. I mean, Candy Crush, for example, and I want you to guess how many hours their players played for in just 3 months at the end of 2017. And there's only about 8 billion people in the world. Maybe 3 billion of those are active gamers online, certainly. So how many hours did they play for, do you think? Say it out loud. Was it 9 billion, 19 billion, or 29 billion? If you say it loud enough, maybe I'll hear. The answer is 29 billion hours. So that means the games that Activision Blizzard have created have engaged their players enough that they are playing potentially for 100 hours a month with some of their games. That's how engaged they are. Yeah. That's a part-time job, isn't it? But they're paying to do it, yeah, rather than we paying them to do it. So that's one of the things we want to learn from. It's like the corporate world woke up and paid attention when they realized just how many hours people were putting into playing games, and wonder what we can learn from that and steal from that. In fact, one of the questions I most commonly get asked is, what about older people? Are they playing games? And in fact, the fastest growing demographic of game players is the over 60s. People are retiring, buying games consoles and playing games. Yeah, there's a couple of articles I found here, but there is an esports team combined of people who are over 70, and they do pretty well, actually. And there are plenty of other people out there who are playing games from an older age bracket. Some of the examples of gamification I've seen in use in corporate world, the people who are over 40, over 50 are the ones who really, really enjoyed the projects and really taken part. My last question around this, once again, I want you to say this out loud. Yeah, is, and this statistic is actually from 2014, but what percentage of video game players, and this includes mobile phone players, in the UK at the time were female? Was it 27%, 41%, 52%? Say that loud. What's your answer? Excellent. I assume you all got it right, and it was 52%. Yeah, so this says, to a certain extent, depending on, we can apply game mechanics to motivate and engage pretty much anyone, whether they're male, they're female, whether they're old, whether they're young. We just have to choose the right game mechanics. Also, in terms of, depending on where you're dialing in from for this, in terms of how we can use it, is that what I want to say? Depending on your demographic in your country, the more developed the country, the more likely it ends up a 50-50 split between male and female usage. So the more democratic access to games is, the more likely everyone is playing. That's the point I wanted to make there. Quite quickly, I'm going to work through some of the neuroscience that supports what we see in gamification. I'm going to look at just 4 neurotransmitters or hormones that motivate us. The first one I'm going to look at is dopamine. Now, dopamine we talk about first because actually if we can trigger it, it's one of the most useful. It's the only one that if we can trigger it, actually rewards us before an event happens. Okay, whereas all the others, we have to do something and then we get the reward. Dopamine is beforehand. And we can trigger dopamine by offering new and novel experiences, for instance. So in a moment, I'm going to get you all to do a little exercise in the Q&A. So hopefully you're looking forward to that now, and we've triggered a little bit of dopamine. Also, it's released when we set goals for ourselves. And this is quite useful when we're setting goals for our customers, setting challenges, setting quests, things like that, because we get a bit of dopamine release in advance of achieving that challenge. And one of the things we'll do in gamification is give people progress reports on their progress towards achieving the difficult challenge, whatever it might be, their goal, and triggering more dopamine along the way. And this is one of the reasons why if you write down your goals, you're more likely to achieve them. Yeah, there's an interesting psychological theory called goal setting theory, which I think also resonates with this as well. Which, if you have a chance, take a look at that as well at some point. There's a good article on the Gameful Bits blog by Gustavo Tondello, which I recommend reading. Now, the exercise when you're doing the Q&A. If we're more likely to achieve our goals by writing them down, let's do that now. I want you all to write down a goal in the Q&A and start it with the words, I'm going to use gamification too. So for instance, I'm going to use gamification to inspire you all to use gamification to improve people's lives over the next couple of months through this webinar. That's my one. What are you going to write? Stick it in the Q&A. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And I'm going to get you to do that because the next exercise will do a bit more on whatever it is you want to achieve. So if you're going to use gamification to get all your customers to buy 3 times as many products over the next 3 months, then we need to know what that is. Excellent. All right, so the second one of our neurotransmitters is oxytocin. And this is key to how we bond to others. So how we make friendships, how we build parent-child relationships, how we work better in teams. This is particularly important to work on through gaming together with your teammates at the moment so that we can still feel bonded to our colleagues, even though we're spread apart geographically. And luckily, the research shows that this can also be triggered even when we're online. So not just in person, but basically oxytocin, which flows when we're doing things socially together, we can trigger remotely. So when someone likes our Twitter update or loves our Instagram post or retweets us, whatever it might be, we can get a little bit of oxytocin release. And in fact, what I want you to do next is look at the questions other people have put in about what they want to achieve with gamification, and upvote and vote for them, for all of them, to be honest, or particularly the ones you like. And as you do that, you'll be helping spread a bit of oxytocin and making people happier and experience better engagement as we do that. So vote for the best things people want to achieve with gamification in the Q&A section, and spread a bit of oxytocin. Let's help it release online right now for everyone who's attending. The other good thing about oxytocin is it's released when we're listening to a story, and it's one of the reasons why we love stories, why we get immersed in them, and it's one of the reasons stories are so powerful in marketing as well. So stories are powerful because they're easier to remember, so they can spread virally, but also when oxytocin is being released, it feels like we're actually in the story. So the better storytelling, the more we feel like we're in it, the more engaged and immersed we are in it. So strong storytelling that we see in games, we use it in our marketing, and we're going to have quite a successful campaign in that case if we do that. Oh, just asked you to do that. The third one we're going to look at is serotonin. Now, serotonin, if you have enough of it, you're happy. If you don't have enough, you're depressed. But it's pretty easy to trigger. Yeah, it can be triggered when you feel wanted, important, and proud. So what does that mean? It means we can thank people. So I want to thank you all for taking part in my Q&A exercise. I can see the numbers ticking up as people engage in that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. In fact, if anything, it's the cheapest way to reward any member of staff or even customers is by thanking and praising them for their efforts. It doesn't really cost any money, just costs time. And yeah, it's one of the most motivating of all types of reward we can give someone. We can also trigger serotonin, or it is triggered when we succeed at a difficult challenge. Yeah. So, say for instance, I've successfully stayed in my house without going outside for a whole week. That might have been a really difficult challenge. And particularly if I'd been aiming for it, having succeeded, I might get a bit of serotonin release. And normally I'd use the example of running my first marathon or making my first sale. It could be anything that was quite difficult, and it will make you feel get serotonin release. So what we do in gamification is we design challenges that are quite difficult. The trick here is you only get serotonin release if the challenge was quite difficult. If it was too easy, then you won't get the serotonin release. And one of the things I see that goes wrong in gamification from time to time is badges are given out, but for things that were too easy, like you just got a badge for logging in. Yeah, that's easy. We don't have to, well, in most systems, it's quite easy. Yeah, it shouldn't be something we should be rewarding. I think the Scouts is a good example. Yeah, a lot of the badges, you only earn them when you can actually demonstrate a skill. Yeah, you've done something challenging. I quite liked getting my Export Champion award. That was a good serotonin generator for me. Yeah, I did well. The challenge was to export, and I turned my company from being an importer to an exporter. Did it well, got something to represent it as well as an Export Champion badge. Great. So, next thing for you to add into the Q&A is, hey, something that was quite difficult. If you could type, I am proud to have achieved, and then something that you've done in the last few months or the last year, or something you're just incredibly proud of that was very difficult for you. Let's pop those in there, and feel free to upvote and like other people's as well once you've put your own in. Yeah. So I'm proud to have achieved my Export Champion role for good exports and winning my award. What are you proud to have achieved? The fourth and last of the neurotransmitters I'm going to cover is endorphins. There are hundreds of others, by the way, but these are the four main ones we talk about. And endorphins are opioids naturally produced by our bodies that make us very happy. And they tend to happen during, they're the most commonly associated ones actually in games, with games. And they happen during the excitement, the adrenaline flowing, the I'm really engaged part of the game. And the simple thing we can do there is design a difficult challenge for someone. When we design a difficult challenge, while they're taking part in it, the endorphins are flowing. So what we want to do in good gamification is combine all four of these. Yeah, so that we can do, well, I'm going to offer you something new and novel that you've never done before for dopamine. I'm going to get you to do it in teams or in groups of two or whatever to trigger the oxytocin. I'm going to design a difficult challenge that's fun to take part in while you're doing it to trigger the endorphins. And I'm going to find some way to celebrate your success in it and trigger the serotonin at the end. Yeah, as you achieve it, you get the serotonin release. And if we can trigger all four of those, then we've got something that's really going to work and engage, whether it's with customers or staff or whatever. It leads neatly into the psychology at this point. Most of you have probably seen at some point Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not going to talk about it too much, just really to say that the bottom part, the safety and physiological section, is very much assumed to be in place before gamification will work. Yeah, so we need to feel healthy enough, secure enough that gamification will work. And that's quite interesting in our world at the moment, is people aren't feeling very secure. So gamifications can be really difficult or harder than normal to make it work. Yeah, because most of the gamification actually happens in the top three sections of the hierarchy of needs. Yeah, it's all about the love and belonging, the autonomy and the choice, and choosing what we want to do. But we're only able to do that if we're not stressed and anxious. So we need to work extra hard in the world of gamification at the moment to engage our customers. The main theory we see that matches up with what we see in games and engagement and motivation is self-determination theory from Decky and Ryan. There are three basic needs that come out of their theory that if we can trigger them, we get motivation and engagement. The first one is relatedness. That's doing things with other people. That's really a bit of a no-brainer. It matches with oxytocin, what we were looking at a second ago. The next one is autonomy, which is all about choosing. Yeah? If I choose to do something, I'm more motivated by it. In fact, out of their research came the phrases intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. So autonomy, I mean, this particularly works at the moment. We've got a load of people working from home. If we can give them autonomy over when they work and how they work, they're going to be more motivated. And the third one is competence. This is more fear-based. This basically says that if I think I've got a chance of succeeding at something, then I'm more likely to give it a go. Yeah. So I bet there's a few of you out there who in the last week or in the next weeks are planning to do your first webinar. Give it a go. Yeah. It's not too hard. Yeah. You could succeed. Conquer that barrier. All right. So if we can trigger all three of these, we've got someone who's motivated and engaged. Then Daniel Pink came along and wrote Drive. I highly recommend it. It's an easy read. He analyzed what motivates people in the world of work, and he came up with 3 key drivers, some of which are the same and some are slightly different. He still had autonomy about how letting people choose how and when they work and what they work on as well. This would be the same for customers, right? We let customers choose different products or how they engage with their products or how they engage with their services. The more choice we give them in that respect, the better. Never too many choices at once, of course, but lots of choice, maybe in sequence, can work very well. Instead of competence, he's got the concept of mastery, and this is probably a closer fit to what we see in games, but this is the fact that actually everyone enjoys learning and getting better at stuff. And in fact, a huge majority of all games and gamification is built around upskilling someone in a particular skill, whether it's a skill such as making Mario jump, yeah, or a skill or a sales skill or whatever it might be. There's often a skill at the heart of every game. Yeah, and that's key. And then he added an extra one, purpose. Now in this, what he realized was that everyone is more motivated if what they're doing has a deeper meaning and purpose, whether that's a big epic one like save the world, eradicate disease, quite topical right now, or eradicate poverty, things like that, or even just sustainability goals, save the environment, that sort of thing. Or they could be personal meaningful goals, like I want to lose weight or quit smoking or do something, raise money for charity myself, things like that. Then everything we do towards them is more motivating and engaging. Yeah. So I was looking at a gamification example yesterday where it's a sustainability saving water example. They want people to learn how to save water, to save themselves money, but actually the more successful at it they are, they get coins towards donating towards a water-based charity. So you've got a double purpose win there to make it more effective. So I really like that example. In fact, I think it's sufficiently important that I've got, I would like you to go and play a game. I'm gonna put a link. Yeah. Which you can go and play. But basically, here's a great example, freerice.com. What they have 2 major purposes with this. One, they want to give the whole world a free education. And secondly, they want to feed all the hungry people. And they do that through this learning quiz. Basically, there are different subjects. It defaults to learning English, but there are other topics like capitals of the world is quite tricky, actually, turns out. Every time you click an answer and get it right, 10 grains of rice get donated to the World Food Programme. So the more, you basically get a double win out of this. You're learning and you're donating at the same time. And what I want everyone to do, even though it's really scary for me as a webinar runner, is I want you to click the link, go to freerice.com and answer 10 questions correctly. And then between us, because there's over 30 people attending at the moment, we'll easily feed 2 or 3 families. That's nice, isn't it? So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. I think, oh yeah, and I wanted to mention that it has fed over 10 million people, and every day there's more and more being fed by this. Here's me having a go. Now I did that quite quickly, but I have played before, so I'll give you another few seconds and then I'll move on to my next slide. But once you've finished your 10 questions and donated 100 grains of rice, do please come back to the webinar. Okay. Right. Let's build all those theories together into one overarching one. I like this 3 layers of motivation from Andrzej Marzuski. In it, he's got the base layer, which is those bottom 2 layers really from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're assuming that is in place before we can do our gamification. In the middle, he's combined the best parts of self-determination theory with Dan Pink's drive into RAMP, relatedness, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And these are the 4 things we like to spend the most effort on, and they really relate well to the neuroscience as well. So I can see why they work together in that respect. And probably 90% of our efforts in gamification is designing for this layer, the emotional or intrinsic layer. And then the trivial layer, which is often what people see as gamification, particularly in the marketing world, is the game mechanics themselves, the points, the badges, the leaderboards, and so on. Now, we use those, but only insofar as they're designed to trigger the emotional or intrinsic layer. Yeah, so I might put you in a team or a guild to give you that feeling of relatedness. I might give you badges and progress bars to help you progress towards mastery. Yeah, I might give you different worlds of content to explore for autonomy, or different tactics or strategies you can use within the game to trigger that. And I'll give you some overarching epic purpose, like defeat the zombie outbreak for purpose. Yeah, so that's how we work. Most of the effort is in that middle layer, the emotional layer. If we get really advanced, then it's worth looking at CSIKSZENTMIHALYI's theory of flow. A state of concentration so focused that it amounts to absolute absorption in an activity. Now, he started by studying mountain climbers. He noticed that they would climb for many hours and they had to be utterly focused, because if they lost focus, they would make a mistake, fall off the cliff or the mountain and perhaps die. Yet, when they finish climbing a mountain, what do? They can't wait to climb another one. So there's something about this state that they're in while they're climbing that's incredibly enjoyable, or that we are highly motivated by. And eventually coined the word flow to describe that. And in fact, after mountain climbing, then looked at performance athletes, and then creatives, artists, and so on, and then people in the world of work. And there's always times when we are in this state of flow. Sometimes it can be as easy as playing a game of Candy Crush, because actually it's partly about the difficulty level. So if we look at the chart there, on the left hand, on the vertical axis, we've got the challenge level. So the higher the level of difficulty, yeah, that's an important bit. On the bottom is our skill level. And if we've got a high level of difficulty and a high level of skill in our own case, then we're in a state of flow. Okay, and that's the trick, is we're trying to make things just a little bit more challenging each time that we do something. Yeah, and one of the issues quite often with gamification campaigns is they're just designed for beginners. So we go in, we take part in something, we finish the game, and we're bored because it didn't get more difficult. There weren't extra levels of difficulty, because all these extra levels of difficulty cost money to develop. Yeah, but it's worth doing. Yeah. In fact, if you ever see someone at work who looks very anxious or worried, they're almost certainly having to do a task that is more difficult than their skill level. Yeah. Every now and then, of course, we get an easy task and we find it quite relaxing. You can't live in a state of flow the whole time. It probably wouldn't be good for your body. I quite like Candy Crush as an example for this, because it's like many games, each level gets harder and harder. Yeah, so as your skill improves, you get harder and harder levels to defeat. I also like Candy Crush as an example because it's very visual. Yeah, the feedback from it is great. The words are good, sweet, things like that. In fact, now I've completed the level, but it's still going to give me visual feedback and all sorts of other words. Should have trust, divine, things like that for actually probably almost as long as I played the level for. That's a lot of feedback. When was the last time you got as much feedback from someone for doing a job as it took you to do the job, the time it took to do the job? Yeah. There's even a leaderboard. I'm not always a fan of leaderboards, but I personally, in gamification, but I personally am quite competitive. So I did have to play this a couple of times until I was top of the leaderboard before I filmed it for you. But that wouldn't work for everyone. So that's where we go with advanced, looking at the psychology of things. Yeah, that covers the science of what we're doing. Now it's about what are we using it for? What are our objectives? And these are the kind of things where I'm seeing the use of gamification in marketing. It's being used for increasing direct sales. It's being used to spread stories, the viral referrals. It was being used to increase footfall. Right now it's being used for the opposite, to decrease footfall. It's being used to attract new customers, to educate customers, particularly around new products. And my favorite use of it is in long-term loyalty programs as well. That's where it's great to design experiences between the brand and the customer, because each experience is cementing that loyalty. Yeah, not just reward points, but actual experiences, things they are engaging with. Sometimes it's used for brand awareness, sometimes for just upselling to existing customers. In fact, what I'd love you to do in your next interactive moment in the Q&A right now is just post what your key marketing objective is. Where do you most need to use gamification? Is it one of these, or have I missed one where you want to use it as well? So let's see a few examples of those going into the Q&A, and I might be able to feedback with some extra examples around key ones there in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar, if I've missed it in the run-up to that. Yeah, so let's have some examples put into the Q&A. What is your core marketing objective with gamification right now? Right, thanks. I can see those starting to come in. So let's look at a few examples of gamified marketing, and I'm going to use them through a tool called the player journey. The player journey is 4-phase, and what we've noticed, actually everything's 4s today. Interesting. What we've noticed is if you don't have all of these phases in place, then a gamification campaign or project doesn't work as well as it could, or maybe even fails. Okay, so very briefly, the 4 phases are discovery, getting people excited about even playing your game in the first place. Onboarding, this is where we teach people the rules of the game, really, and feel comfortable with the fact they're going to play. The scaffolding or habit building phase is the game itself. And then the mastery phase is what happens when they complete the game. Yeah? If we don't do anything, what happens to those customers? They might actually just be disappointed and turn negative, even though they've had a good experience up to then. So it's important to get all 4 phases. I'm going to show you a video and talk you through it because I like this example from the North Face because I think it shows all 4 phases of the player journey in just under 2 minutes. So here we've got a pop-up store selling North Face jackets. Yeah, so people are wandering around it as normal, trying stuff on. Now the staff sneak out of the shop and flick the switch. So this is the discovery phase. The floor is moving. I'm quite excited, maybe scared. What on earth is going on? Yeah, so I'm interested and I need to know more. Now the onboarding phase starts. I've got to hang on to the wall. In fact, I'm learning the first part of the game, which is going to be climbing the wall. Yeah, I'm literally physically onboarded. A little bit more intrigue. A jacket comes out of the ceiling. I've got 30 seconds. When the timer starts, if I can climb up, take a leap and grab the jacket, I win it. What's going to happen? Will they take the leap? So the game itself is to climb up the wall and to take a leap. This is the habit building or scaffolding section. That was the journey. Are they going to do it? Apparently taking a leap takes a bit of effort. Yes. Fantastic. So that the mastery phase of this is obviously if you win the jacket, you've got a representation of your success in the game. Yeah, in fact, you're going to be wandering around telling your friends about it for weeks, I expect. Hey, I played this game at the North Face and I won a jacket. But I think even the people who took the leap will have probably been asking, could I play again? but the game itself, you could see that the people who took the leap and missed the jacket still had smiles on their face, and that shows it was a good game design. So there we go. In less than 2 minutes, all 4 phases of the player journey. Discovery, physically moving the floor in this case, and this kind of worked for lockdown or quarantine as well, didn't it? There was like 1 person in the store at a time. Yeah. The onboarding was literally climbing the wall. The scaffolding was to climb up the wall and take the jump, and mastery was to grab the jacket and win it. Perfect, all in one place. Let's have a look at a few more marketing examples of each phase. So the discovery bit is about earning people's attention. Yeah, it's all very well having a great game, but if you can't actually get it in front of people, they're not going to be able to play it. Yeah, so how do we grab their attention? One of my favorite examples, and this is basically just an ad for a training course. Okay, this is from the World Bank. They did a project called Evoke, which ran for more than 1 year because it was very successful, designed by Jane McGonigal for the most part. And what they wanted to do was get people to take part in a collaborative game across multiple countries where people collaborated to innovate and come up with solutions to things. And they created a really interesting ad. In fact, there's a nice sound audio aesthetic with this as well, a voiceover and stuff, but you've got me instead. But the wording I really like in this. Yeah, there's short animations, little bits of comic strip, but the wording is aimed at you. Yeah, it's like, you, this is your call to action. You're the hero. You're going to take part. You're going to save the world. How often do you actually get an invite to a training course or learn about a product that's that exciting? Yeah, this game will teach you all sorts of cool skills, collaboration, creativity, and so on. Every time I watch this, I want to take part. Yeah, if you've got a problem, no one else can solve it, invoke it. I keep it going because I quite like the bit at the end. A crash course in changing the world. So that ticks that purpose box as well. Yeah, from Daniel Pink. The whole of that is aimed at enticing me in to play a game. I'm not playing the game yet. It's just the discovery phase. What about on the onboarding phase? Building comfort and trust in things. There's a great example, Plants vs. Zombies. If I had time, I'd make you play it, but I filmed the first level just so that I don't lose you while you go off and play Plants vs. Zombies. This has got great onboarding. Now, the onboarding is partly guides to talk you through how to play. Yeah, it's giving you feedback when you do something correctly. It says, yeah, well done, that was the right thing to do. It tells you why you want to do something. Keep on collecting the sun because it helps you grow plants. Things flash at you to call your attention if you're not using them. In fact, if you don't click on something at the right time, arrows will appear. So there's like levels of onboarding within it. And yeah, and it's a bit of fun killing off the zombies and defeating the outbreak. What else is happening here? There's not that many choices. It's quite simple to begin with. There's still excitement. I've got zombies coming at me, but all I have to do is click on suns and plant plants, and I've only got one place to plant. In the next level, there's 2 choices of plant. There's more zombies. There's 3 rows of grass. So I've got far more tactical and strategic choices to make. But it's almost impossible to fail that first level. I have seen someone fail, but it's almost impossible to fail. Yeah. It onboards you into how to play the game. The best onboarding, by the way, isn't just a tutorial. It's actually getting you to play the first level of a game and teaching you a core concept or 2. And then the next level, add another concept, and so on and so forth. So when we want to onboard customers onto anything, even our own website or our buying process, we need to think about these things. Did I miss anything? There were guides. It highlighted things. It gave you positive feedback and visual feedback when you were successful at doing stuff. There weren't too many choices. Yeah, so there were limited monsters, so there wasn't too. In fact, it took a while before they came at you, but there wasn't much you could do. It was quite limited, and there were limited options. Just that one: click on the sun or click on planting a plant, and that's how you keep people comfortable and on board them. There aren't many bits of work software that are actually that good at onboarding people, but where they do it and do it well, it makes quite a difference in getting people to like your product or even love the product. Here's a simple example from a company called 3 Radical. They have a game that people could play in Zizzi's restaurants, or in fact, they can play it online from Zizzi's website as well. And the onboarding within it is quite simple. The first thing is you actually get to choose something. Yeah, you choose an avatar to play with. So that's great. Then you get to, it talks you through what you're going to do. Quite simple. I'm going to be rolling the dice. And depending on where I land, I'm going to get rewards or challenges or questions, or things are going to happen. And I might even build up enough extra price draw entries, or I might even build up enough tokens for a voucher as well if I land on the right things. So I could do with one of these at the end of today, a nice Prosecco. So once I've landed on 3 of those, I'll win a voucher for a glass of Prosecco next time I'm in the restaurant, which hopefully won't be too long in the future. And I'll have a cocktail to go with it as well. I quite like that last bit. You run out of goes, you can earn some extra goes by doing some online sharing, things like that, or following them on Twitter. Yeah, nice little touches. Right, so that was 2 examples from onboarding. What about the game itself, the scaffolding section? I've got an example from a few years ago, but I think it's perfect for where we are now in quarantine. Yeah, so this is a purely online example that Magnum ice cream did. What I like about this is they worked platformer. So you control your character, and they've designed slightly different games that appear on multiple in other brands. And in this moment, when we're all trapped at home, the ability to go into school, then if you played this when it was online, stick a comment in the Q&A. So this is the sort of game that went viral as well. People shared it for you. So I quite like a good side effect like that gamification. So the 4th phase in the player journey, the mastery level. This is about, well, to be honest, if we do this right, then this is where we can get ambassadors and the people who really enjoy our games go and tell other people about it to become those really torchbearers for our product, our service. And it's about giving them the right rewards, really. Sometimes that's empowering them. Sometimes it's just giving them a bit of recognition. Let's have a look at an example. Sometimes you could give them something as simple as a trophy. This was a gamification award won 2 years ago by a Polish company, and they were so excited. Look at them leap for joy with the trophy. Yeah, that's quite a simple way to wrap up a game as well, and show that it's finished and that's cool. We've done the game. Let's show them a trophy, or it could be a badge or certificate, something that represents your success in it. quite like this one from Rise, which is an online leaderboard about social influence, in this case in the world of champagne. I'd quite like to have I'm a top influencer in champagne. I mean, I do have this from the Gamification Gurus leaderboard run by Rise as well. But that's quite nice. You can then stick that on your profile, embed it on your LinkedIn. Who knows where you want to put it? Yeah, so something to represent your success. One of the best types of rewards you can give a player, by the way, is extra levels, extra content, more challenges for them to do. That's the best reward of all, but it's sometimes the more expensive thing for us to develop is extra levels and more content, in which case give them something like this. This is easily represented by the Export Champion badge I got earlier, which not only do I get a badge, but I have to do things for free for the Department for International Trade, like go and convince other people to export. Yeah, so quite often by rewarding people, we then get them to do work for us in our marketing. So, conscious of the time, but we're spot on for where I was hoping to be. How do I actually go about designing and using the player journey? The trick I find is to think about it in terms of emotions. And what we try and do is for each phase of the journey, decide what emotions we want someone to actually experience. Okay, so in the discovery phase, what emotions do we want them to experience? Then in the onboarding phase, then when they're actually playing the game, and hopefully there's a variety of emotions and we take them on an emotional journey from where they first discover the game to where they come out the other end. And those emotions, quite often at the beginning, they're about interest and excitement. Although if I was selling insurance, I would probably have a bit of fear, that sort of thing, as an emotional. And towards the end of the game, it tends to be around pride and recognition, and sometimes a feeling of community if you've managed to get a good team game going. The trick here is to use really specific emotions to make a more interesting design. So I had a client in Egypt who were talking about wanting a game to convince their staff to use the stairs instead of going up in the lift. Okay, and they chose in the discovery phase the emotion, or loosely called an emotion, of romance. Yeah, and they were like, how could we possibly use that now we've chosen that? And actually, I thought it lent itself quite well to the game design. So from a romantic point of view, maybe going up the stairs a lot, this is in the posters and things and the advertising for the game, you can say, hey, after being much fitter, you end up finding the partner of your dreams. Maybe we do a blind dating or accidental dating type game in the stairwell. There's all sorts of things we could have done around that by choosing a particular emotion, a very detailed, specific one. I've got a tool actually that I recommend, because what most people do is they get stuck on just the 6 basic emotions: anger, sadness, surprise, joy, love, fear. But that doesn't help you really with good game design. You want something a bit more specific. Yeah, so I would try to always think about using stuff from, say, the outside of this circle. Yeah, more specific. So romantic is down there, down the bottom, and I had students who were trying to design an experience for lecturers to to gamify getting lecturers to teach better. And from their reward for the mastery phase, they wanted the emotion of awestruck or speechless even. And so by choosing that emotion, they had to design something completely different. In fact, in the end, they decided what they would have to do is give an award to the lecturer in front of all the students they taught that year to really put across the impact to get them to be that speechless or awestruck type of emotion. Yeah, but they would never have designed that element, or almost never have designed that element, without thinking about that first. So when we're doing this, we think about I always try and think of at least 3 emotions for each phase of the player journey. And if I reuse an emotion, yeah, like I still want excitement on 2 of the different phases, then I want 3 unique emotions as well. Yeah, so I might end up with 4 emotions on a particular phase. Yeah, so, and then we build a journey of exciting emotions while people discover and hear about our game and then take part, and how they feel when they come out of it. And that gives us probably one of the most powerful routes to success in gamification. Perfect. So I want to give you a few resources. So on my website, and I'll share a link in the Q&A in a minute, We've got a reading list if you want to read wider around the subject of gamification. So there's some gamification books on there. There's some books around game design. There's some books about behavioral psychology, consumer psychology, that sort of thing there. There are some white papers available on that page as well. The Three Radical one there is around grabbing people's attention in this day and age so that they do pay attention to us from a gamification point of view, using gamification to grab people's attention. And there are some links to some of the best talks from our Gamification Europe conferences over the last 3 years. I really recommend the Jeff Gomez one that I've highlighted on the screen here about collective journey, which is like taking on storytelling from the hero's journey point and then evolving from that into something that works across multiple different formats and involves the audience, not just talking at them, but really involves them and helps them take part. If you can get to grips with that, you'll make amazing marketing campaigns. So those are the main resources that are available there. There is a game on my website, and if you play the game, you get a copy of our framework for how to run a successful gamification project. So I'll share the link for that as well, because you have to make it through 7 levels of the computer game, which is called Pete in Gamification Land. And the link's at the bottom there, gamificationplus.uk/game. I'm going to show you the first level. It's pretty simple. So this apparently is me and designed by my team. And then you have to take me on a journey to collect all the little Gamification Plus icons on every single level. And once you've done all 7 levels, you win access to our gamification framework. Hooray! Obviously, they get harder as the levels go on. And apparently that's me as designed by them. So every time the character dies, I die a little. So please be nice to me. And I have a new service, especially I've been designing this in the last couple of weeks for this whole coronavirus experience that we're all going through at the moment. This is the Gameful Leadership Guild. I'm going to facilitate a weekly online meeting, small groups between 5 and 10 maximum in a group, and it's going to be for people who are starting to implement a gamification project or initiative. And I'm going to run this in an action learning style so that we learn from each other and we report back to each other every week to make things actually happen in a confidential format. I've experienced loads of these over the years and they really work very well. It's going to be just weekly for now because I want us all to really succeed over the next 3 months and keep our businesses alive. So I really want to help someone achieve that. Usually this would be £500 a month to take part in, but because I've not delivered it online before, I'm going to give you first 10 people anyway, the beta testers, a 50% discount off that price. So you're going to tap into your peers plus me and my expertise for 1 to 2 hours a week, every week, for a mere £250 a month. That is a bargain. So if you're interested in taking part in that, let me know. In fact, you could book a free 20-minute video call. I promised you this at the beginning if you made it all the way through. So you can scan the QR code, which will take you to this link for bookings, and you can book a 20-minute video call with me for free at your convenience by doing that now. So you could take your mobile, you could scan that picture and take you off to do that and book that. I like it when the email pops in saying I've got another diary appointment. I look forward to hearing about your project that you're going to work on and how, well, I'll give you a bit of advice anyway. And then also if there's anything else we can do together. Feel free to contact me or connect to me on LinkedIn. Any of these different methods for getting a hold of me are fine. And now I'm going to take a look at the Q&A and see what questions, if any, you have. So bear with me while I get the Q&A up and quickly scan through. So feel free to add questions. And I will try and answer them. I'm going to quickly look through. See what, I'm also going to announce what games people have said. People are playing Scrabble, The Witcher 3, Gwent. Oh yeah, it's a card game like that. Someone's just bought a PS2 in preparation, and they've been playing Lego Star Wars. I have just downloaded that from Steam for my daughter to play. I might play that as well. And they're playing Counter-Strike. People are now playing games again for the first time in years. Doesn't take long. I reckon it takes about 30 minutes of playing before you get your love of playing games back again. I see that in the world of work. When we put a gamification camp project into action within the workplace, even the people who say I don't play, once they've been playing for a little while, probably like half an hour, they seem to rejuvenate their love of play, which is great. Someone's playing Red Dead Redemption 2, really strong story and exploration opportunities in that. Ticks a lot of boxes. Minecraft, Dino Park. I haven't played Dino Park. I might have to play that one on the mobile. Homescape. Someone else plays too much Polytopia. Yeah, I've played for too many. I think I played over 100 games on that. And now they're playing Division 2 on Xbox, if they can get on it when the kids aren't playing. Great. Pokemon Shield, 2 Point Hospital, 4 Elements. I don't know that one. Make a note. Some people just like strategy games and puzzles. That's me as well. I like that. Heyday, Sims, yeah. Dots. Dots is a great challenge game. I've played that. Like that. Beat Saber, yeah. That's a good exercise one. Anyone who's got a Wii, a Nintendo Wii at the moment is probably staying a bit fitter than the rest of us while we're stuck at home. Okay, the things people are doing to motivate themselves. To bit where I said, tell me what you're going to use gamification for. People are saying to motivate myself. Oh, I'm going to start voting for some of these, like I said you could do. I'm going to use. Ben says I'm going to use gamification to engage people with health conditions to take on more suitable exercise. That's really cool, Ben. I plan to run one whole gameful leadership guild just for health, people doing health projects in gamification. So get in contact on that, and I'll probably do some sort of massive extra discount if we can help people really stay healthy during this period. Phil says I'm going to use gamification to encourage users to engage more with my app. That is probably the most common type of project we end up getting involved with. We want people to help gamify apps so that people come back to them, use them properly, change their behaviors because of it. I think that's a great example. Robert says, I want to make lectures more engaging. Good man, Robert. Definitely. There are tons of books and things that are worth looking at in that. In fact, I quite recommend Carl Kapp, Gamification and of Learning and Instruction. He's kind of the go-to expert on that. And I haven't read it yet, but I plan to while I'm stuck at home. The multiplayer classroom. That I think will tick some good boxes. So there's plenty of resources out there. Some of these should be on our reading list as well in the resources page. Someone wants people to start loving Mondays again. If you design their work right and make it engaging and give them autonomy, they probably will start loving Mondays again. So if you've been listening, apply what you've learned from this webinar. I'm going to use gamification on safety training. Great. It's a really popular use of gamification. I'm going to use it. Robert says he's going to inspire it to use it to inspire his startup team. Good man. Bill Taft said, I'm going to use gamification to create information products. Yeah, great. Really good use of gamification. Henning says to create more engaging websites. Sabine to understand demands and needs. Okay, so there's another good book by Betty Adamu called Games and Gamification in Market Research, which could be really useful for you. Highly recommend that. In fact, she's got some webinars online recorded that you can probably tap into. And also there's one on the Gamification Europe YouTube channel from Betty. So watch that when you get a chance. Miria says, I'm going to use gamification to engage my social media audience and promote our NGO. Great. That's a really good idea. The viral stuff that we can design on the social media side is great. Deborah says, get cardiac rehab patients to do their exercises online. That's really cool, Deborah. I like that. You can take part in our Health Gameful Leaders program as well. Also, take a look at the example Play Physio in the UK, which is a series of games to get kids to do their breathing exercises. And I think there's quite a lot you can learn from that you could apply to the cardiac side of things. Millie says to engage my customers to buy my products and repeat purchase. Yeah. So that was the point of what I was trying to teach today. So that's good. Maria to promote sustainable mobility modes. Yeah, and also right now with everyone stuck at home, we've got a chance to, this is a major change in people's lifestyles. There's a chance to change their behaviors and to teach new ways of thinking about this. So when we're unlocked again and able to move, we might be able to inculcate new behaviors for people. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people right now who are enjoying working from home for the most part. And so we need to encourage more of that. So now's a really good time to build games around that. Violetta, to use gamification in physiotherapy rehabilitation. I refer you to the play.physio example again, but there's some great examples out there that you can learn from. There's quite a lot of academic research as well around games and health. To learn different ideas and approaches, excellent. Henning, doing more than one. To establish a regular meditation practice. That's quite cool. I like that. I'm quite a fan of the app Headspace, by the way, which is, it's got gamification in it, but in a very minimal way, which I quite like as another example. It doesn't have, gamification doesn't have to be very in your face if needed. And it does some interesting things like tell you how many people are meditating at the same time, which makes you feel part of a bigger community, which gives you that connectedness. And of course, it has collections of different skills that you can meditate in. I'm halfway through a productivity set of meditations on Headspace. So I quite like that. And there's some other gamification features like streaks and things like that. Sabine is proud to be a mother and a wife. 2 difficult things to do. You should be proud. Gonna tick that one. Bill is proud to have achieved praise for his career switch to product manager of a small startup and succeeding. I like that, Phil. A bit of gamification of your product as well, and you'll really soar in your new career. Robert has designed the new edition of 4 Elements. Good back. Yes. Deborah G is proud of keeping plants alive. Good. Yeah. It reminds me I haven't watered my plant today. Violet is proud of working in healthcare and being in a position to change people's lives for the better. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people realizing what heroes you are at the moment. Phil is using gamification to increase user engagement and conversion rates, upselling particularly. Good stuff. Ben is attracting new patients and increasing long-term attendance. Engagement to improve health. Excellent. So there's enough health change behavior ones here to do a whole lecture on, or a whole webinar on, and maybe I'll do something else around that. Right, I'm going to scoot down and see what questions there are. There's a comment about really difficult player journeys that are extremely challenging. And what the person, Anas, I think it says, is that such games build up incredibly loyal and tight-knitted fan bases. And that's so true. It's amazing how much challenge people are willing to go to solve and engage in games. I've always found that in the world of escape room design, which I haven't really covered today at all, I'm always amazed by just how difficult you need to set the challenges for people to solve. People will analyze all sorts of things and run calculations and really go to town on trying to solve your puzzles. Myria asks, what happens if we launch a game and people don't engage? Do we relaunch it at a later time or keep trying? Okay, well, you need to do a bit of user research and find out why people didn't engage. But generally speaking, it's probably one of those 4 phases that, well, one of the first 2 phases that hasn't worked. So are people excited enough to take part? Sometimes that's the bit where you need, sometimes the discovery phase is the only place I might use an extrinsic motivator, like download and engage in our game and entered into prize draw, for instance, because sometimes we just need a little push at the beginning to get into these things. But maybe the onboarding is worth looking at. Yeah, perhaps the first bit is not quite engaging enough in terms of learning it, or maybe it's a little complex at the beginning. The most common reason I won't play a game is the onboarding is not good enough. And I go, I haven't got time for this. And I'll go off and play a different game where they've got the onboarding right. So that for me is the bit where I would always analyze first to and see what, if you can watch people trying to play your game, you'll soon learn whether it's the onboarding that needs help. There's a question about, are these slides available somewhere? I might put them up, but I will also put up a recording of this webinar and make that available as well. Lots of thanks in there. It's good, thank you. It's nice. There's a question from Brett. Do you find it beneficial to also create player personas for customers, akin to Amy Jo Kim's and Bartle's framework, to help identify types of game to design? e.g. collaborative versus competitive? There's a few questions in there. The short answer is yes, I do find it beneficial to think about player types. I particularly use Andrzej Marzuski's player type hexad. Bartol's framework is a little outdated for use in this now, particularly as it was just designed for a MUD. But also most people are using an old version of it anyway. There's also some new research out of Canada on player type traits, which is good for game design as well. So you've got player type traits if you're just designing a game, look it up, or user type hexad if you're thinking about gamification. And well, Amy Jo Kim inspired my use of the player type, the player journey. So I would say yes to that bit. Could I share the links for the books? The short answer is yes. That's in the reading list as well, but I'll make sure I find a way to share those as well in another way. The recommended book of mine went a bit too fast. Okay, I'll hold it up again while I read the next question. That's a very long one. I'll read that in a minute. Any advice about using gamification in qualitative market research? That is very specific, but actually this is the book, Victoria. So I would recommend reading this one and connecting with Betty around that, as she has done some work in that area. And I've got a lot of feedback from Deborah in Cambridge. And there's some notes about the Play Physio. Oh, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Deborah. All right. Unless there's any new questions, which there aren't right now, that strikes me as a really good place to wrap up this webinar. I will find a way to share it online with you all as well. Thank you very much for listening and for taking part. And I look forward to speaking to some of you for your 20-minute calls. I can see that a few people have already booked theirs, so that's great. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much for taking part. I will say goodbye for now. Thank you for playing.